Hackers, gamers, and traders, welcome to JBeanTV, the prediction arena, where foresight meets fire. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to see you all here for night 2 of the challenge. This is challenge number 10. We've had a wild start to this week. The markets are still shaking off that big drop, and there's plenty to unpack tonight. Doug's going to kick things off with a quick pulse check to see where our predictors are leaning, and after that, leaning after that heavy move, and then he'll dive right into market training, using some of the latest indicators he's built to help us read the signs of what might be coming next. And once we've got the groundwork laid, we'll pull up the leaderboard and take a look at how last night's predictions played out. So settle in. We've got learning, analysis, or a bit of competition all lined up for you tonight. So let's get the show started. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Good, Big Kaz. How are you?
Fantastic.
You know, I'm a little worried because our pre-show we kept asking questions and everybody was dead silent. I don't know if they're a little maybe intimidated to come on or what's going on here with these guys. So,
Well, and I think there's a lot to be said about that, Doug, because looking at the market tonight, trying to get my predictions in, um, it's just hairy, scary territory right now. I can't decide if we're going up or down. I know last night mine were off by quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to the training so that I can soak some more of that in and get a little bit more confident around what I'm looking at. We went
right.
into territory we'd never been in before, and then we dropped like a rock right out of it. And I just feel like everything's so bizarre looking and volatile. It doesn't feel like the charts we've been looking at. Does
Well,
anybody else feel like that on the panel?
Most definitely.
and I think, the question, for everybody is how are you recentering yourselves? I mean, how are you getting back to, as Big Kaz kind of described it, a terrible feeling of not being imbalanced there. Lost your equilibrium, right, Big Kaz?
That's it. And I must say, I am a Libra, so I don't like when things get out of balance. And that's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm feeling out of balance.
Feeling out of balance, huh? Yeah, and I think that's reasonable because depending on how you dial down in the charts and you begin to look at things, it's hard to get back in balance after that happens. So, let's kind of go through this. Who would like to kind of share their Monday to Tuesday, the prediction, and I'll share my screen here. We'll walk through some of this a little bit. I got this on a 4-hour chart, and I'm gonna kind of let me do this. Let me turn everything off for a second so we can look at a clean chart here. You can move your indicators around over here, guys, so you can organize your indicators if you're kind of wondering what I was just doing. Putting the 3 indicators we're going to work with tonight at the top so we can kind of look at those. But let's kind of dive in and talk about our Monday to Tuesday predictions, and I'll go to daily here. So this is our candle that just closed. And we had this up. So what we were looking at going into our prediction was really, we had the big wick, we had a little bit of up. We really didn't have a whole lot to go on if we just are looking at this alone. So I'm kind of curious what everybody kind of thought. Anybody want to jump in? No, Big Kaz, they do not.
Are we talking about a prediction for last night or a prediction for tonight?
The last night to today's close, and not today to tomorrow. We'll talk about that in a minute. But how I'm kind of curious how many people did predict the down and back up, or how many predicted that we were going to continue to go on up in today's candle.
Yeah, so I was in a prediction of going back up. I figured the weekend was over. there wasn't much going on with the Trump in China, so I figured the buyers would come back in, and I was wrong. I listened to my wife again.
I like that. I've never been able to use that in my trading background. Blame it on the wife, but that is a good one. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I see that. I see, you know, you had an up, you didn't go down anywhere. You have this almost like a spinner, right? You got to make a decision on what you think the market's going to do and unless you kind of frame this in a lot of ways, it feels like you're kind of just trying to throw a dart at what we think the market's going to do. And the question is how do we frame this and what do we consider most relevant? And I think there's a number of things that we're going to look at to kind of get to what's relevant and how we kind of try to position ourselves in what we see in the moment, what's really going on now, and how we look at what has happened as a kind of a guidepost. Is there things in that kind of give us parameters to work with? Okay, anybody else want to share?
I do. So, what do you say to this? In looking at looking at the market yesterday at very close to 5 o'clock, maybe 4:45. So when you combine Fibonacci retracements, CP&R signals, and wick percentages, the balance point sat right around 115.5.
The point of control? Okay, so the point of control was based on what you were looking at was around 115 what?
115.5.
500. Okay. So right about there.
Does that look true to you? I mean, these are the discussions I'm having with my AI, and
well, we'll leave this green line on there and we'll look at that because the point of control is going to depend on what you're looking back at. If I'm looking back at this whole range, yeah, that could very much be. If I'm looking back just through this breakdown, then it's probably going to be something different. And then we have to decide what is it that we're trying to understand. And this very important point of control, because it is this, my guess is, and let's just look.
AI thought that would be our neutral gravity center for tomorrow's session, 115.5.
Okay, so if I take, and I'm looking at from yesterday, and let's get the InfoLine. So we're looking at, this hasn't closed yet. So we go from what has closed. And if we're looking back about 43 bars or so, that catches this movement. And we'll look at multiples here, okay? But first of all, the first thing we want to do is look at this. Okay, what has happened in this up and back down into where we are right before we're trying to predict? That's 16 bars back. And so we do the look back on the daily at 16, or we dial it down to an hourly or 4-hour or something that might have more data if you want, but right now we'll do it on daily. And on that portion of the data, the point of control is all the way up here. Okay, not valid, not important because we're down here. So the question is then, is this the most important piece of information that you want to look at, or is all of this data important? And for me, you're in this range, so you gotta look at the whole range. And then you got to dial down into what's happening now. And that's kind of the lesson we're going to go through tonight. But so this was a very, very appropriate question. 95 bars back. I'll go to 95. And this is going to give me everything within this range that the traders could be looking at. And you look at this, your point of control is slightly above where you were predicting, not too far off. But the key point is that whether you're looking at 115 or 117 as a point of control for this whole area, you're trading below that point of control. You have not closed above your 115, and you haven't even gotten close to, touching the 117 yet. Okay. So for your AI's discussion, I think, you would have to go back further into a different range to get this to drop. But this is the valid point of control. But to a very important point, and I want you to notice that, yes, this is the highest volume point of control, but this is arguably the second highest volume right here. That's our peak, okay? So you have your second, if you want to call it, point of control would be right here, right where you're talking about. And obviously the market is looking at that volume and seeing that this area as an important area. So did you have any other arguments with your AI or discussions?
We talked about the first consolidation band was forming around 114.8 to 115.8.
Mm-hmm.
That was on the 4-hour chart.
Yep.
It was matching the Fibonacci 38.2 retrace from the local move.
Okay. Wow.
So we were looking at those areas. So, with the 115s in mind, I'm just surprised we closed as low as we did with at least what my AI and I were discussing.
Yeah. So if you go from top down where we dropped, we came up, we closed above 38.2, above 50, and we're not hitting the 61.8 or 0.618. If they're just looking at just the candle move itself, we're right on there. But the right thing is to kind of go from swing point to swing point here. And if we bring that down to the 4-hour, you have different swing points. So it just depends on where you're drawing. I like to follow from the top down. So if we didn't close back above this and we held, then there's no reason to change the swing point. If we had closed back above this, to me, it would have established a new swing point, even though this probably qualifies as a swing point on the 4-hour. What I really want to know is, what is the main control point? And this here is the main control point for me. And arguably, people would say, well, that's a swing point too. And then you're dead on the 61.8. Okay. So I mean, but here, you're still trading just slightly below the 61.8 and just above the 50 percentile. So, a lot of people are going to look at this. A lot of people are going to look at this. Both of them are very valid. Okay. And both of them show everything is showing that the point of control, we haven't gotten back above it. Whether you're looking at this 61.8 or the one that's slightly higher 61.8, we haven't closed back above the 61.8. We're staying below that. So all of that begins to paint a picture. So it definitely shows the barrier. And the question is, what's happening down here? What are we seeing in terms of this overall range and the current range? And that's what we're going to look at a little bit tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into that, because BitCaz kind of got us heading down that direction, and very, very well done, BitCaz. The first thing that I want to do is, and we're going to leave BitCaz's number here because I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but we're going to look at it. I'm going to stay on the 4-hour, and I'm going to go back to 23 candles, and you'll see, I'll show you why here. Okay. What I'm looking at is trying to understand after this, and everybody's going to be asking this question, and you guys are asking the question too. I can hear it in some of the things that we're talking about. We had this big down, and it created this chaos in the market. What next? What now? You know, how do I get back to some level of equilibrium we talked about, or some level of balance? And how do I establish that balance? Well, you have to let the market establish that balance for you. And then sometimes after a move like this, when I was trading, larger funds, sometimes it's worth sitting on the sideline until things balance out. Well, we're predictors and we're not sitting on the sideline. So we have to begin to figure out what's going on here. So if I look at this and I go to the 4-hour and I slide this over, I want you guys to look at this. Is there anything that pops out at anybody?
A lot of green over there.
A lot of green. Okay. And what is that green? It's buyer imbalance, right? So there's more buyers than sellers all through this range after that big down. 1.63, I think, we have it all two. Here's a two, 2 point to 1, 1.83 to 1, huge imbalance. And down below this point of control, do you see any seller imbalance? No. So, and above this, we do see some seller imbalance, a little bit. And then we have buyer imbalance again. And then with one seller imbalance up here, which is a 2.41 to 1. That's on the 4-hour. Okay, so there's so for the most part, and this is being made up, I think, of this right here. For the most part on the 4-hour, we see a lot of absorption. So buyers are absorbing sellers, and that leads to a lot of accumulation on the 4-hour. Okay, so that's important to note that after this massive down, who's doing what now? Not what happened over here. This is done. I want to know this over here as my barriers going up or my barriers coming down. But in what is happening right now, I need to understand this. And is there anything in here that can help me understand if I'm going to break up higher? Like I thought, we could break up higher, and that was a very legitimate thought. Or is there anything here that suggests that I might break down lower? Well, there's a lot of buyers saying, no, you can't, and that we're going to be taking that control. Well, let's dial down just a little bit more. Let's go down to a 1-hour, because this will change a little bit as we get more micro or granular at looking at the market. Okay, so let's go down to 1-hour, and we're going to have to change our look back. So we're going to look back at 68 candles, and we'll look at where that is, in this. So I'm going to go back to 68 first. And then we're going to see that 68 from roughly from here to here is 98. So my 68 was really trying to look at this last move here. Okay, it's 70 candles now because when I was looking at it earlier, but trying to look at this last push. Okay, and taking this out, because this is still a lot of craziness going on after this major move. But from here, we can clearly see that we're trying to establish some level of sanity after basically an insane move. Okay, so we were able to close above the, and I like this, you know, because there's a couple things going on. We had the rejection, we had a green rejection, a down rejection. We finally closed above that in this move. We actually established two other fairly decent tops, lower highs and lower lows, right? And we took out this one right here. We took out this one right here on this candle. And we took out this one basically on this or this candle. So to me, this is trying to establish some balance again. Okay, because we're clearly, the market is shifting because we're closing above these retests that failed. This is a failure to go up any higher. This is a failure. This is a failure. This is really a failure. This is the first close above. I often used to trade this one a lot. So as soon as I got a candle to close above the first rejection of going up, I traded the pullback of those for this kind of move. But you had 1, 2, 3, 4 all taken out in this nice move up, reestablishing some equilibrium, some balance. And if I look at this, I can see that most of the buys, look at 2.13, 1.8, 2.13, and there's some others in here. You can see if I spread it apart, you can see where those imbalances are happening, you know, right at this point, above this point. So a lot of buying down here in this low area, no seller imbalance down there on the hourly in this range here, okay? I started getting a little seller imbalance here and some at the top, but I still have a lot of buyers believing, a lot like you, I see, that, you know, this thing was over and it's going to go on back up. So these guys could be buying and cost averaging when it comes back down. You know, if they're trading correctly, that's what they would be doing, and taking the risk that it's going to break. The thing that I would want to see for any up predictions, for me to start getting excited about an up move, is this has established itself as like a little double top on the hourly. Obviously, sellers got aggressive again. Buyers came back in and are holding. They love this lower area. Once we start closing above here, then we get some pullbacks and maybe some pushes. Okay. So that is the 68 candles back. Let's look at the 95 on the hourly and see how that changes our view a little bit. And that's going to go back to this range here. It's going to be right around this range, and we could go a little bit more than 98 now. So we're at 97 candles back. I'm going to change this to 97 now. Okay. We can see our value area low. Look at that, guys. It's beautiful. It's right on that barrier. Okay. Our value area high, we've closed above that, but we do have a very high peak right here. And we're going to look at what that is here in a second. We're above our current point of control though. So we're establishing some up volume, and the point of control is shifting down based on all the buying pressure that we saw on the 4-hour. But you can see here, we have a lot of buying imbalance at the bottom. We have this gap. We have a few sellers. We're seeing that here, seller imbalance, okay? Buyer imbalance, which is some of the people are buying this pullback. We can see that very clear. Seller imbalance and buyer imbalance at the top, okay? So to me, this is really laying out a very nice range, okay? These buyers, we get above these guys, pull back, we can get a bounce. These guys, which is a nice block, and I love seeing a block of imbalance, okay? That creates a wall for me. That's the way I see this. I see it like a brick wall. The more imbalance I see, you know, the thicker the wall is, and the more people that are interested in buying this. So my prediction ranges, you know, would have to stay for me within this, because that is the current picture being painted. Okay. Now, if I go back to a 4-hour here, and we're going to go across the chasm here, and we're going to look at 98 bars back on the 4-hour. Okay. Just so we can kind of, and we're at 97 now. Okay. Very important. This whole move, the point of control, we're trading above it. Okay. You can see we're coming to the peak of this volume profile. Right here, we have a lot of imbalance. We had a lot of buyer imbalance, but that's over here. That's happening over here. Okay. And so we have a target, and I think I see this was very close to your target high, 21. And that's a very legitimate, if we can get back above here and close, this will clear out probably fairly quickly. Okay. If these buyers re-engage, which I think they will. Okay. So this creates this kind of vacuum that would bring us back to potentially that area that you were predicting. And very valid area, and it shows that very clearly here. So last thing we're going to look at is I'm going to try to dial into this move down. Okay, and I'm going to go back to hourly, and I want to catch it right before it drops. I'm going to catch that down and this. So 32 candles. So you guys can see I'm looking at this every way I can to try to paint a picture. The most important picture was what's happening in the current. Okay. Once the current breaks, then I need to know what are my options, what might happen if this breaks, where might it go, what might affect it, what am I trying to see. Okay. So I go 32 candles back on the 4-hour, which will cover this down move and these moves here. Okay. So let's look at this. Hang on a second. Okay, get this right. 32. I think that's what I said. Yep, 32. Oh, now because this down is so severe, I can see that I get above this. My first real seller imbalance on the 4-hour comes up here. I need to get more granular. I need to go back to the hourly, and we're going to look back. The hourly is 131 bars. Okay. 131 bars. And I see the same thing. Now, to your high, I see this seller imbalance happened here. That's probably going to become a wall starting at about 119,000, going to the 121,000. Those sellers existed in this down move, and they probably think if they're getting in down here, buyers become sellers. They all, you play both sides here. They're going to look at this as a very good target starting at 119 to sell. Okay. And I think that is our roadmap. Now, if I add in the volume profiles, and let me turn this one off here. And we saw how Deb's number played out multiple times. I'm going to go to the 4-hour here. So I said 119, remember? Well, this is slightly below 119 is the supply zone, and just all the way up. So we saw it to about 121 or so. So within the supply zone, we know where those sellers are. We know exactly where they are because we've seen where they were before. Okay. But look at our demand zone. This is really good, right? We know where the buyers are down in here, depending on which time frame you dial down to, but the hourly had the buyers right here in the bottom. 4 hour had them a little bit thicker, but there's a wall down in here in this demand zone. So we can clearly identify the the map, right? We can lay it out, we can see it, we don't have to be confused. It doesn't have to be a mystery. Now the question is what do we do with it? Do we believe that this channel that we're in right now is over? Those are the things that you got to determine. But where you are and what is going on in the market right now, I think is mappable, and I think it is that you can see it, right? If you just systematically use the tools and dial back, and we'll do this over and over and over again through the different challenges. So we get used to trying to become, I think, very methodical about how we map out what we need to see. So, all right, BitCaz, we're ready to look at who the winner from yesterday is.
Awesome. That was very good. Thank you for that in-depth walkthrough. I think I need to dial in the way I'm using the tools a little bit more after watching that. So thank you.
Well, yeah, and the tools themselves, until you really get used to them, guys, I know they can be overwhelming. They're new information. There's a lot there, you know. But the key is that, you know, it does, the whole idea is it's there to help you frame what's going on. Okay. This is up on the JBean website. But, you know, I gotta say DDOG is really not living up to what he wanted to do or
To
be.
stay in the shadows.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, what is that? What is that song? No, in the shallows.
In the
Yeah,
shallows, yeah.
no, not in the shallows no more. So yeah, he's really blowing his cover here. So but DDOG, Bitcoin Boss, Lovejoy, BitCaz, Bitcoin Magnet, Wannabe. Then we get uh, the mode for wisdom of crowds and the mean. Where's the WC? Oh, it's right below it. Very good. We can see that high was 0.005 off, 0.008, 0.006, 0.1, 0.2. Those are really good numbers. Now, these are going to be all mixed up, and I can see that we got some zeros down here that were very good predictions on the high. The low 04, 03, 04, 02, 03, 03, 04, 04, 03, 03, 04, 04, 04. That is amazing. Okay. The close 02, 01, 02, 02. I don't see anybody better than 01, but a lot of people really, really right, right in the money, guys. Really, really, really well done. So, uh, so anyways, you know, this will be up. You guys will be able to see it. And you go to predictions.jb.com/leaderboard and it'll be there. In the future, you'll be able to go back different dates and see the leaderboards that we've had. And so you can kind of keep track of them and know what's going on. All right, BitCaz, I'm giving it back to you. I'm going to stop sharing here.
Well, that is incredible. I had no idea we were already in the system. That was going to be just a quick leaderboard check. What I'd like to hear is from anybody on the panel. I'd just like to hear any questions that you might have, or, you know, maybe comments on what you got out of tonight.
So my one question is, the line that we're using to go across that showed you how many candles is that just a regular line? And then the box automatically comes up like that?
Yeah, let me show you how that works, brother. And great question. And let me share my, so there's a couple of lines that, and let me clear all these lines, remove drawing lines. Okay. When you go to tools over here, you got your trend line. Trend line is really, you know, for doing actual trends and stuff. It has no data on it, but it's really good for doing swing points and those kind of things. The one you want is InfoLine, okay? And you always want to start and left click on the candle that you want to start with, and you're measuring, and this becomes a measuring tool. You can see it says 46 bars, 53, 60, you know, it tells you how many bars back it goes. And I got to tell you guys, this is a great tool because back in the old days to do this, Brendan and I used to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way back to 98 bars. So to have this tool, you know, it's a wonderful tool. But back in 20 years ago in FX, we didn't have all this fancy stuff. So. All right. So, all right, let me stop sharing here. And
all right. Well, what a night. We just wrapped up our first look at the live leaderboard. No more spreadsheets from Doug. And it felt great to see everything updating right on the site in real time. Huge thanks to everyone who jumped in with predictions tonight and helped us break in the new system. This is a big step for the platform, faster feedback, smoother results, and a whole lot more fun for everyone competing. So keep those insights sharp, keep your predictions coming, and we'll see how the crowd shapes up the market tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone, and as always, keep thinking ahead.
That's a wrap from JBeanTV and the Prediction Arena. Keep predicting, keep climbing, and I'll see you next time.
You don't want to miss the next round proc. Grab your OmniBean NFT now and unlock your place in the game.